Real shit. Like, I really don't want us to get into it and then, like, you gotta go against the politics. Cause, bro, I swear to God, you a mark. You know you is, bro. On God in heaven. And I'm not talking about woo-de-woo. I know real blood. You know how real blood is.
Oh, nah. Oh, damn. Oh, nah, what?
Nobody was prepared for this. And that's exactly why the internet froze for a split second before absolutely losing its mind. Just when everyone thought the Chrisean and Blueface saga had finally crawled into its messy little grave, Blueface pulled the most unhinged plot twist possible. He didn't subtweet. He didn't send cryptic emojis. He didn't go live screaming. No, he pulled up in real life, on Chrisean, with her new man right there. Like this was a deleted scene from a reality show that should have been canceled 3 seasons ago. And Chrisean. She didn't just react. She melted down in a way that made every past crash out look calm, collected, and almost professional. Tears, yelling, shaking energy, confusion mixed with rage, and that unmistakable look of someone realizing their new chapter just got rewritten in permanent ink. The internet watched in real time as peace packed its bags and chaos kicked the door off the hinges. This wasn't closure. This wasn't love. This was unfinished business wrapped in bad decisions, ego, and a sprinkle of public humiliation. And if you think this is just messy relationship drama, think again. Because what happened next dragged in egos, receipts, old wounds, and a fanbase that immediately picked sides like it was the playoffs. Buckle up, because this makes the Kardashians look like they communicate through therapy worksheets. Nobody pulls up by accident when emotions like these are still unresolved. And that's the uncomfortable truth everyone tried to ignore the moment Blueface showed up. This wasn't a casual drive-by or a coincidence wrapped in bad timing. This was a calculated disruption, the kind that only happens when someone refuses to accept that the chapter might actually be over. The energy shifted instantly, and you could feel it through the screen, like static crawling up your spine. Chrisean's face said everything before she even spoke, because that wasn't shock alone. That was history crashing into the present at full speed. For months, the narrative was simple on the surface. Chrisean was moving forward, smiling again, showing moments of peace that fans hadn't seen in a long time. She looked lighter, calmer, like someone finally exhaling after holding their breath for years. The new man beside her wasn't loud, wasn't flashy, and most importantly, wasn't Blueface. That alone made the internet suspicious, because peace doesn't trend as well as chaos. Still, many people wanted to believe she was done with the emotional roller coaster that had turned her love life into public entertainment. Blueface, on the other hand, never really disappeared from the storyline. He hovered in the background like an unresolved side quest, always present in conversation, memes, and commentary, even when he wasn't physically around. Every post, every caption, every subtle jab felt like a reminder that closure was never officially signed, sealed, and delivered. So when he finally pulled up, it didn't feel random. It felt inevitable, like gravity doing its job. The moment itself was uncomfortable in a way that made people stop scrolling. Chrisean wasn't prepared, and that's what made it raw. Her body language shifted immediately, confidence replaced by confusion, composure replaced by emotion. This wasn't a staged reality TV argument with cue cards and lighting. This was real tension between two people who know exactly how to trigger each other. And the presence of the new man only added gasoline to a fire that never really went out. What made it worse was the symbolism of it all. Blueface pulling up wasn't just about Chrisean. It was about territory, pride, and unfinished emotional business. It was the unspoken message of "you're not really done with me," delivered without words. And Chrisean's reaction proved how deep those emotional wires were still connected. You could see her trying to hold it together while every old feeling rushed back at once. Like reopening a wound you pretended was healed. The internet wasted no time dissecting every second. Screenshots flew, clips looped endlessly, and everyone suddenly became a relationship expert with a microphone. Some people blamed Blueface, calling it manipulation and control disguised as concern. Others blamed Chrisean, saying she never fully detached emotionally and that this was bound to happen. And then there were those who blamed fame itself, arguing that nothing ever really ends when millions of people are watching. What stood out most was how quickly the narrative flipped. One moment Chrisean was praised for moving on, and the next she was scrutinized for reacting emotionally. The double standard was loud. She was expected to be healed, unbothered, and emotionally bulletproof. While Blueface's pull-up was brushed off by some as just checking in, the imbalance was impossible to ignore. And it fueled the outrage even further. Behind the scenes, this wasn't just about jealousy or drama. This was about control over the story. Blueface showing up rewrote the narrative in real time, shifting the spotlight back onto him and recentering himself in Chrisean's life, whether she wanted it or not. That's why the moment hit so hard. It wasn't just an emotional reaction. It was the realization that escape from a toxic cycle is harder when the other person refuses to let the story move forward. Chrisean's breakdown wasn't weakness, despite how some tried to frame it. It was the visible weight of unresolved trauma colliding with public pressure. Imagine trying to move on while your past keeps showing up uninvited. Cameras rolling, opinions flying, and no room to process privately. That kind of emotional ambush would rattle anyone, but when it happens in front of millions, the impact multiplies. As the tension escalated, the new man became an unintentional character in a story he never signed up for. His presence alone challenged Blueface's ego, and that silent competition made the situation even messier. This wasn't about words exchanged, it was about energy, stares, and unspoken history hanging thick in the air. The kind of moment where nobody wins, but everyone watches. By the time the clips stopped rolling, one thing was clear. This wasn't a clean break, and it never had been. The pull-up cracked open everything Chrisean tried to bury, and the internet got a front row seat to emotional chaos that felt too real to ignore. And just when people thought the situation couldn't spiral any further, reactions from fans, celebrities, and meme pages started pouring in, turning a personal moment into a full-blown digital wildfire. The moment the clips hit the timeline, the internet didn't just react, it erupted. This wasn't a slow burn scandal that people debated over days. This was instant combustion, the kind where phones started overheating and group chats turned into emergency broadcast systems. Every angle of the pull-up got slowed down, zoomed in, psychoanalyzed, and turned into memes before Chrisean probably even had time to sit down and breathe. What should have been a private emotional collision instantly became public property. The memes came first, because humor is the internet's favorite coping mechanism. People compared the situation to horror movies where the villain keeps coming back no matter how many times you think they're gone. Others joked that Blueface has a GPS tracker on Chrisean's piece, because every time she looks calm, he magically appears. Laughing emojis flooded the comments, but underneath the jokes was a very real discomfort. Everyone knew they were watching something that wasn't funny for the people involved, but that never stops the timeline. Then came the think pieces. Suddenly, everyone was a licensed therapist with a Twitter account. Words like trauma bond, narcissistic patterns, and emotional manipulation started flying around like confetti. Some people said Blueface pulled up to reassert dominance, not love. Others argued Chrisean's reaction proved she wasn't fully healed and had rushed into a new relationship too soon. The takes got louder, harsher, and more judgmental by the minute, because nuance never trends as well as extremes. Celebrity reactions didn't help calm anything down either. Subtle posts started popping up, vague enough to avoid direct names, but obvious enough that everyone knew who they were about. Quotes about self-worth, moving on, and protecting your peace flooded Instagram stories. At the same time, others cracked jokes, liked shady comments, or reposted memes, turning the situation into entertainment instead of a warning sign. It was like watching people clap while a house was clearly on fire. What really fueled the chaos was how polarized the audience became. There was no middle ground. You were either Team Chrisean or Team Blueface. and neutrality was treated like betrayal. Supporters of Chrisean argued she was ambushed emotionally and robbed of the chance to move on quietly. Supporters of Blueface claimed he had every right to show up and that her reaction exposed unresolved feelings. Logic took a backseat while loyalty and bias drove the conversation off a cliff. Meanwhile, the new man found himself dragged into a circus he never auditioned for. The internet scrutinized his posture, his facial expressions, even how calm he stayed. Some praised him for not escalating the situation, calling him mature and grounded. Others mocked him for being too quiet, accusing him of being intimidated. In reality, he was just a regular human being standing inside someone else's emotional hurricane, trying not to get hit by flying debris. What made this phase especially toxic was how quickly people rewrote history. Old clips resurfaced, out-of-context moments got reinterpreted, and timelines were rearranged to fit whatever narrative someone wanted to push. Moments where Chrisean looked happy were used against her. Moments where Blueface looked absent were suddenly reframed as misunderstood. The past became a weapon, sharpened by algorithms that reward outrage over accuracy. As the situation spiraled, the energy shifted from concern to spectacle. Reaction channels went live within hours, dissecting the meltdown frame by frame like it was a championship fight. Titles got louder, thumbnails got wilder, and speculation turned into profit. Every reaction video added another layer of distortion, pushing the story further away from reality and deeper into entertainment territory. At that point, the chaos had a life of its own. Chrisean's emotional response became the main talking point, which conveniently distracted from the original act that sparked it. Instead of asking why someone would pull up unannounced and disrupt a fragile situation, people focused on how loudly she reacted, how visibly shaken she looked, and whether her tears were justified. It was the classic internet switch-up, where the reaction becomes the crime and the trigger fades into the background. Blueface's silence during this phase only added fuel. Every hour without a statement made people speculate harder. Was he enjoying the chaos? Was this planned? Was he waiting for the right moment to flip the narrative again? Silence can be louder than words online, and his refusal to immediately clarify anything allowed the story to mutate uncontrollably. People projected intentions onto him like a blank screen. By this point, the situation stopped being about two people and turned into a cultural moment. It became a case study in toxic cycles, public relationships, and how fame magnifies emotional damage. People who had never followed either of them before suddenly had strong opinions. The scandal jumped timelines, platforms, and even age groups because chaos has universal appeal. What was lost in all of this was the human cost. While the internet debated, joked, and chose sides, Chrisean was still dealing with the emotional fallout of having her past physically interrupt her present. Healing doesn't happen on a schedule, and it definitely doesn't survive ambushes well. But the internet doesn't pause for healing. It demands content, updates, and escalation. And just when it seemed like the frenzy might die down, subtle shifts started to appear. Statements were hinted at. Friends began posting cryptic messages. The tone moved from reaction to anticipation because everyone sensed the aftermath was coming. Consequences were forming behind the scenes, and whatever came next was going to reshape how this entire situation was remembered. Because chaos doesn't end when the cameras stop rolling. It ends when the damage finally shows itself. And that part was only just beginning. When the noise finally started to thin out, what remained wasn't relief, it was damage. The kind that doesn't trend, doesn't mean well, and doesn't disappear when the timeline moves on to the next scandal. This is the phase nobody glamorizes because it's quiet and comfortable and forces everyone involved to sit with the consequences. After the pull-up, after the meltdown, after the jokes and outrage, Chrisean was left staring at the reality that moving on publicly doesn't mean the past won't kick the door down uninvited. The first shift was subtle but telling. Chrisean's online presence changed almost overnight. The playful tone faded, replaced with distance, silence, and energy that felt guarded instead of joyful. That's always the giveaway. When someone who overshares suddenly goes quiet, it's not peace, it's processing. The meltdown wasn't just embarrassment or shock. It was the emotional cost of realizing that healing isn't linear when the other person keeps pulling you backward for sport. Public perception followed the same pattern. At first, sympathy poured in, especially from those who recognized the signs of a trauma bond being violently reactivated. But the internet's attention span is ruthless, and compassion has an expiration date. Slowly, the tone shifted from concern to criticism. People started asking why Chrisean was still emotionally affected, why she hadn't set firmer boundaries, why she was still reacting at all. Accountability suddenly became a one-way street, and the empathy drained out of the room. Meanwhile, Blueface's role in the situation became oddly normalized. The pull-up, which initially shocked people, slowly got reframed by some as inevitable, even justified. That's how manipulation survives in public spaces, by exhausting people into acceptance. When chaos happens often enough, it stops feeling outrageous and starts feeling routine. The internet didn't forgive the behavior, it just got tired of condemning it. The new man's position grew increasingly uncomfortable as well. What started as a quiet introduction into Chrisean's new chapter quickly turned into a stress test no relationship should face this early. He wasn't just dating her. He was dating her history, her audience, and her unresolved emotional ties. That's a heavy load for anyone, especially when millions of strangers are watching and judging every move. Silence, patience, and restraint were interpreted as weakness by some and maturity by others, proving once again that the internet can't agree on anything except drama. Behind the scenes, reputations were taking hits in different ways. Chrisean's image as someone finally moving forward cracked, not because she failed, but because the situation reminded everyone how deeply entangled she still was. Blueface's image hardened even further, shifting from controversial to calculated in the eyes of critics who saw the pull-up as intentional disruption. The story stopped being about love and became about power, control, and refusal to let go of relevance. What made the aftermath especially grim was how predictably it unfolded. This wasn't new territory. It was the same cycle playing out with slightly different lighting. Public relationships don't heal privately, and private wounds don't survive public interference. Each viral moment made real progress harder, not easier. And while fans argued online, the emotional toll compounded quietly in real life, where likes and comments offer no protection. As days passed, the scandal cooled, but the narrative stuck. Chrisean was labeled emotional again, dramatic again, unstable again, despite reacting to a highly destabilizing situation. Labels are sticky like that. They ignore context and cling to reactions rather than causes. Once they're applied, every future move gets interpreted through that lens, making growth harder to recognize and easier to dismiss. The most unsettling part of the aftermath was how little closure anyone got. There was no clear apology, no definitive boundary set on camera, no satisfying resolution for viewers craving a clean ending. Instead, there was ambiguity, tension, and the lingering sense that this story wasn't finished. Unfinished stories are dangerous because they invite repetition. They leave the door cracked open just enough for chaos to slip back in later. For the audience, the fallout became a mirror. Some people recognized patterns they'd lived through themselves, exes who couldn't let go, fresh starts that weren't as fresh as they seemed. Others saw it purely as entertainment, another chapter in a never-ending saga they felt entitled to consume. Both reactions coexisted, clashing loudly in comment sections where empathy and cruelty shared the same space. What's undeniable is that the pull-up changed the trajectory of everything. It didn't just interrupt a moment, it reset the emotional clock. It reset the emotional clock.